When we try to picture a young person at risk for addiction, a certain image usually comes to mind. We think of someone looking for an escape, maybe struggling in school, maybe, falling in with the wrong crowd. It's a familiar, almost cliche narrative.
Right, the standard picture.
But what if the real risk factor isn't what we think it is? What if it's something we usually see as a positive trait?
Okay, interesting.
Imagine scientists taking detailed brain scans of over 10,000 children, starting from the age of 9. Long before most of them have ever even considered trying alcohol or drugs.
Wow, that early.
Yeah. They're looking for a clue, a marker that could predict who might experiment later on. And they find one. But it's not a sign of damage or deficit.
So not what you'd expect?
Not at all. The kids who were predisposed to early experimentation had brains that were, on average, larger, with more folds and grooves, a structure often linked with higher intelligence and a deep curiosity about the world.
Larger brains. That seems completely counterintuitive.
Doesn't it? Suddenly, the picture changes. The at-risk kid might not just be the one acting out. It might also be the quiet, bright student who seems to absorb everything. It raises a deeply counterintuitive and, frankly, unsettling question. Could the very traits that make a child gifted also be what makes them vulnerable?
That truly is a powerful way to start this deep dive, because it immediately flips our preconceived notions about what addiction vulnerability looks like, especially in young people.
Right.
We often default to these simple, sometimes even, judgmental stereotypes, picturing a certain kind of troubled youth.
Yeah, the easy narrative.
But this research, this deep dive into the brain itself, forces us to confront a far more complex reality. It's about moving beyond that traditional narrative of a child who is struggling in obvious ways, and instead looking at the subtle, sometimes even positive underlying factors that could predispose them to early substance experimentation. This isn't just a minor tweak to our understanding, it's like a foundational shift.
It really is, isn't it? When we hear larger, more complex brains, our minds typically jump to higher intelligence, enhanced learning, maybe even greater resilience. You think, advantage.
Exactly, advantage.
But here, the science is telling us that these very neurobiological markers, these structural differences that are often associated with positive cognitive traits, could actually be a predisposition for early substance experimentation.
So strange.
This demands a significant shift in how we approach identifying and supporting young people. It's like finding out the engine that makes a sports car fast might also make it harder to stop,
That's a great analogy. And this shift is absolutely crucial because it compels us to investigate the neurobiological markers and pre-existing brain structural differences that predispose adolescents to substance use disorders, independent of actual drug exposure.
Right, before the drugs even enter the picture.
Precisely. This means we could potentially identify those at risk much earlier, before they even start experimenting. To truly grasp this, we need to understand the brain's internal architecture, particularly two main systems involved in motivated behaviors.
Okay.
We call them the reactive system and the regulatory system. The reactive system is all about our sensitivity to reward and punishment, those immediate, often automatic responses to stimuli.
Like the gut reaction.
Yeah, think of it as the brain's accelerator and its basic immediate brake for urges. It's about how strongly you respond to the prospect of something good or something bad.
Okay, so the reactive system is like our immediate gut response, the impulsive side that sees a shiny object and wants it now. What about the regulatory system? That sounds like where the control and planning come in.
Precisely. The regulatory system encompasses our executive functions, or EF. These are the higher-level cognitive processes, the things that allow us to plan ahead, make reasoned decisions, inhibit those immediate impulses from the reactive system.
Put the brakes.
Exactly. Put the brakes on and direct our behavior towards specific, often long-term goals. The prefrontal cortices, or PFCs, are absolutely crucial for this cognitive control, for making those well-thought-out decisions, and for engaging in goal-directed behavior.
Okay, the PFCs, the brain's CEO, kind of.
You could say that, and here's the key, and it's a huge part of adolescent vulnerability. The PFCs are among the last brain regions to fully mature.
Right, I've heard this. It takes a while.
It really does. We're talking well into young adulthood, sometimes even your mid-20s, not adolescence. This delayed maturation makes adolescence a particularly vulnerable period because the brain's main control center is still essentially under construction, while other, more primal systems are already highly active and seeking stimulation.
So if the brain's internal steering wheel and brakes The regulatory system are still developing, but the accelerator in the reactive system is already fully engaged. It creates this significant imbalance.
A major imbalance.
Is that where the triadic model comes into play? I've heard that term used in this context.
Yes, that's exactly where the triadic model offers a powerful explanation for adolescent addiction and risky behavior. It looks at the interplay of three specific neurobiological systems.
Okay, 3 parts.
First, you have an inefficient control or regulatory system involving those medial and ventral prefrontal cortices we just discussed. Imagine a car where the driver is still learning to steer and brake effectively.
Got it. Still getting their permit.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Second, there's a strong reward or approach system, powerfully driven by the ventral striatum and the midbrain dopaminergic system. This is the engine, making rewards feel incredibly potent and driving an intense desire for novel and exciting experiences.
Full throttle on the reward seek.
Exactly. And third, there's often a weak threat or harm avoidance system, which involves the amygdala, the brain's natural alarm bell.
The warning system is quiet.
Right. When you combine these three, a weak ability to control impulses, a powerful pull towards reward, and a diminished sense of potential danger, it creates kind of perfect storm for increased engagement in substance use and other risky behaviors. It's like having that powerful car with a developing steering wheel, weak brakes, and a driver who doesn't quite register the warning lights on the dashboard.
That analogy makes it incredibly clear and, a bit unsettling. It's not just about one part of the brain, but the dynamic interplay and, crucially, the timing of their development.
The timing is everything.
This sounds like it also ties into the concept of primary and secondary motivational neurocircuits. How do those fit in?
That's a great observation, and it deepens our understanding of this developmental dance. This model further distinguishes between primary and secondary motivational neurocircuits. The primary neurocircuit involves the prefrontal cortex, the striatum, and the thalamus, what scientists often refer to as corticostriatal thalamic cortical loops.
Okay, quite a mouthful.
It is. But you can think of this as the brain's core decision-making and action planning network. This circuit is responsible for orchestrating goal-oriented behaviors, including those that can sadly lead to addictive patterns.
Right.
But this primary system doesn't operate in a vacuum. It's constantly influenced.
So the primary system is the central command, and the secondary systems are like all the vital inputs feeding into it, like intelligence reports coming in.
Precisely. The primary system receives crucial inputs from the secondary motivational neurocircuitry. These are circuits that gather information from all sorts of other brain areas: sensory input, what you see, hear, feel, affective or emotional states, how you're feeling, memories, past experiences, and even homeostatic processes like hunger, thirst, or fatigue.
All the background info.
Exactly. Now, here's where the adolescent vulnerability truly sharpens. These bottom-up secondary motivational systems mature at different rates. Because they come online and gain influence at varying times across the lifespan, their relative impact on the primary decision-making system also changes.
Okay, so things are out of sync.
Very much so. This means that during adolescence, when these maturational imbalances are at their greatest, young people may simply not have the fully developed capacity to regulate their motivational or emotional states in the same way that adults can.
Makes sense.
This explains why we see such a pronounced elevated rate of both addictive and affective disorders emerging specifically during this turbulent yet critical developmental period. It's a period of immense brain reorganization, and unfortunately, not all parts come online in perfect synchrony, leaving windows of vulnerability.
That truly is a profound insight into the adolescent brain. It's not just about one part, but the interplay and the timing. So with this understanding of motivation and reward, let's talk about reward processing itself. We often hear about dopamine in the context of addiction and a concept called reward deficiency syndrome. What is that?
The reward deficiency syndrome is a compelling concept in understanding why some individuals might be more susceptible to addiction. It posits that some people have what's called a hyporesponsive or underactive midbrain dopaminergic system.
Hyporesponsive, so less responsive.
Exactly. Imagine your brain's natural happiness dial is stuck on a lower setting than most people's. Your internal reward pathways simply don't get as much of that natural buzz or pleasure from everyday experiences.
So life feels kind of blah, blah.
Potentially, yes. To compensate for this inherent under-arousal, these individuals may then subconsciously or even consciously seek out external, often extreme or addictive behaviors as a way to self-medicate. They're trying to boost their internal reward system to a more comfortable or pleasurable level.
Trying to feel normal or even good.
Right. This theory aligns quite well with broader self-medication theories of addiction, where substance use becomes a desperate attempt to fill an internal void or alleviate persistent discomfort.
So if your brain's baseline isn't naturally as high, you're essentially seeking something external to bring it up. And how does dopamine fit into the way we learn about rewards? Like with reward prediction error. I've heard that term.
Dopamine is absolutely central to how we learn about rewards through a fascinating mechanism called reward prediction error, or RPE.
RPE.
This is essentially the discrepancy between what an individual predicts will happen in a given situation and the actual outcome they receive.
Prediction versus reality.
Exactly. When a reward is significantly better than predicted, say, you tried a new food and it was unexpectedly delicious, that generates a positive RPE, and dopaminergic signaling in the brain increases. This surge of dopamine drives your behavior towards that reward in the future, teaching your brain to seek it out again.
So that aha or wow moment gets wired in.
Precisely. Conversely, if the reward is worse than predicted, that's a negative RPE, and dopamine signaling decreases, prompting your brain to adjust or change your behavior. Avoid that thing next time.
Got it.
This mechanism is crucial for reinforcement learning, shaping our habits and desires. However, it's important to note that while these theories, like reward deficiency syndrome and impulsivity theory, offer valuable insights, they don't yet fully explain all the complex neural activation patterns observed in young people, where development is still so fluid.
Still pieces missing.
Right. And for more advanced theories, like incentive sensitization, which suggests that repeated drug exposure can make cues associated with drugs increasingly attractive over time. Well, more extensive longitudinal studies are still needed in young populations to fully understand their long-term predictive power. We need to track kids over time.
So it's not a complete picture yet, but we're constantly piecing it together, adding layers of understanding. Beyond the dynamic functional activity of the brain, what about its actual physical structure? How do macrostructural features like overall volume, the thickness of the cortical layers, or the density of gray matter predict substance use, or even the development of substance use disorders, SUDs?
That's where structural magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI, provides us with those static, detailed images of the brain's physical architecture. You get a snapshot. Research has begun to uncover some truly intriguing and sometimes counterintuitive associations between these macrostructural features and a young person's likelihood of prospective alcohol or amphetamine use, and even the eventual development of SUDs.
Okay, like what?
For example, studies have revealed that having a smaller or thinner right dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, that's the DLPFC, and smaller bilateral anterior cingulate cortex, or ACC, predicted earlier alcohol initiation and more binge or heavy drinking in young people.
Okay, DLPFC and ACC, those are control centers, right?
Exactly. These are crucial control-related regions. So less robust structure there could mean less effective impulse control. That makes intuitive sense.
That really does track. Smaller, thinner regions in areas linked to control could mean less effective cognitive control, potentially leading to earlier risky behavior. But I also remember seeing some research that indicated greater gray matter density in the DLPFC predicted escalating substance use in highly impulsive youth. That sounds contradictory.
It does sound contradictory on the surface, doesn't it?
Yeah. How do we reconcile those two findings?
That's where the complexity of brain development truly comes into play, and it highlights that the relationship isn't always linear or simple. It's not a straightforward bigger is better or smaller is worse.
Right. It's nuanced.
Very nuanced. While smaller volumes in some regions might indicate a predisposition for one group, greater gray matter density in the DLPFC, particularly in highly impulsive youth, could indicate a different neural pathway.
How so?
Well, for these individuals, a more dense, perhaps less efficiently organized processing structure might contribute to escalating substance use when combined with their pre-existing high impulsivity. It suggests that different structural markers might interact with personality traits in varied and nuanced ways, ultimately leading to similar risky outcomes.
So the structure interacts with the personality.
Precisely. It's a reminder that brain development is highly individual.
So it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all brain structure for vulnerability.
And what about the orbitofrontal cortex, or OFC? I know that's a really important area for decision-making and reward processing. Is its volume also a reliable predictor?
The orbitofrontal cortex is indeed critical, playing a key role in evaluating rewards and making value-based decisions, figuring out, is this worth it?
However, its volume as a predictor of substance use has been quite inconsistent across different studies, leading to a complex puzzle.
Okay, more complexity.
Yeah. For instance, some research found that a smaller medial OFC predicted SUDs and escalating amphetamine use, and a smaller left lateral OFC predicted earlier SUD onset. This suggests a direct link to impaired decision-making or reward evaluation.
Okay, smaller seems bad there.
Right. Yet, in an intriguing counterpoint, larger left lateral OFC volume was found to predict comorbid alcohol and cannabis use in older adolescents.
Larger. Okay, now I am confused. Why would we see these differing directions, sometimes smaller, sometimes larger volumes predicting risk?
It is confusing, and these inconsistencies are likely tied to the varying baseline ages of participants across different studies. Remember how we discussed that prefrontal volume, including the OFC, actually peaks around ages 10.5 to 12 years before starting a natural developmental decline into adulthood?
Oh, right, that peaking and pruning phase.
Exactly. The imbalance hypothesis offers a compelling explanation for these disparities in OFC volume. It suggests that what appears as a difference might actually reflect a delayed developmental trajectory in youth who go on to use substances.
Delayed trajectory, like they're maturing slower in that area.
Sort of. Imagine a garden where some flowers bloom early and some bloom later. A child whose OFC is on a delayed trajectory might have an OFC that looks smaller at an earlier age, but it's actually on a path to becoming larger at a later age compared to the typical earlier peaking trajectory of their peers.
Ah, I see. So depending on when you take the picture.
Exactly. Depending on when a brain scan was taken relative to their individual developmental curve, you might observe different patterns, leading to this complex, seemingly contradictory picture of risk. Their brain's control centers might mature later, leaving them vulnerable during a period when their peers are already better equipped.
So the timing of brain development is absolutely crucial, and it's clearly not always a simple more or less scenario. It's about the journey and the timing of that journey. Fascinating.
It really is.
Shifting gears a bit, beyond the physical brain structure and its dynamic activity, how much do our genes play a role in all of this?
Yeah.
Is there a strong genetic connection to addiction vulnerability?
Without a doubt. The genetic contributions to addictive disorders are very significant. Twin studies, which are, excellent for teasing out genetic versus environmental influences.
Right, comparing identical and fraternal twins.
Exactly. They suggest that genetic factors can account for anywhere from 30% to a substantial 70% of the variance in substance addictions.
Wow, 30 to 70%. That's a huge range.
It is a huge range. It indicates that while genetics are a major player and can certainly load the dice, they don't tell the whole story, and environmental factors are also highly influential. It's never a simple case of nature or nurture alone, always an interaction.
Always both.
Yeah.
And is this genetic influence just for substance addiction, or do genetics play a role in behavioral addictions too, like gambling or internet use?
Emerging evidence strongly suggests that genetic factors also contribute to behavioral addictions. So it's not limited to chemical substances. What's more, research has begun to pinpoint specific genetic markers.
Oh, really? Like specific genes?
Yeah, for example, a particular variation or polymorphism of the mu-opioid receptor encoding gene has been associated with adolescent alcohol misuse. This emphasizes that genetic susceptibility can be either quite broad, shared across different types of substances or even behaviors, or it can be very specific to certain drugs.
So you could be prone to addiction generally, or specifically to, say, alcohol.
Potentially, yes. It's a complex tapestry of genetic predisposition that interacts with our environment, influencing our individual thresholds for vulnerability. Think of it like a genetic blueprint that makes certain pathways in the brain more or less sensitive to reward, stress, or control.
That really drives home the point that vulnerability isn't just about external factors or bad choices. There's a deep biological and genetic underpinning that makes some individuals more susceptible from the outset. Now, let's transition into part two, because it's clear these biological predispositions don't exist in a vacuum. They interact profoundly with an individual's psychology and their lived experiences. So to begin, what role do personality traits play as risk factors for substance use?
This is a critical area because beyond the brain's hardware, Our individual software, our personality traits, can significantly heighten an individual's susceptibility to substance use.
Right, the way we're wired psychologically.
Exactly. The two big ones that consistently show up in research are impulsivity and sensation seeking.
Okay, impulsivity and sensation seeking, classic risk factors.
They are. And impulsivity isn't just about acting without thinking. It can be far more insidious. It can act as a powerful mediator.
Mediator, like a go-between.
Yeah, like a kind of bridge or a multiplier between substance use and other risky or criminal behaviors. So it's not just that impulsive people might try substances. Once they do, their impulsivity can fuel an escalation into more intense illegal activities or problematic patterns, intensifying the legal and social consequences.
So, once the initial barrier is crossed, impulsivity can really accelerate the spiral. Are there any notable gender differences in how these personality traits manifest or influence risk?
Yes, studies consistently indicate that males often engage in higher levels of sensation-seeking and overt risk-taking behaviors, which can directly lead to early experimentation.
More externalized risk-taking.
Right. Females, on the other hand, tend to be more influenced by peer relationships and social factors, which can either be a protective factor or a risk factor, depending on the peer group.
Ah, so the social context might be more key for girls.
Often, yes. This crucial distinction suggests that prevention and intervention strategies need to be quite nuanced and tailored to account for these distinct gender dynamics to be truly effective. Can't use a one-size-fits-all approach.
That's an important nuance, and it reminds us that there's no single pathway to addiction. Now let's talk about something incredibly impactful and unfortunately widespread. Childhood trauma, also known as adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. What is the profound impact of these experiences on vulnerability to substance use?
Adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, are defined as significantly stressful and/or traumatic experiences that occur during childhood, prior to the age of 18, and their prevalence in the general population is truly staggering and, frankly, sobering.
How common are we talking?
Over 60% of adults report having experienced at least one ACE.
Over half the population. Wow.
Yeah. And a significant 17%, that's nearly 1 in 5 adults, report experiencing 4 or more ACEs. This isn't a fringe issue. It's a widespread public health concern.
4 or more. That sounds like a lot of accumulated stress. And what's the direct connection to drug abuse specifically?
The link is incredibly strong and deeply concerning. ACEs are a major, well-established risk factor for drug abuse. For instance, research consistently shows that various forms of childhood abuse are closely related to substance use, including marijuana use.
Okay.
The numbers really drive this home. Individuals with ACE scores of 5 or more, meaning they've experienced a significant number of these severe traumas, are dramatically more likely to report illicit drug addiction.
How much more likely?
Specifically, 7 to 10 times more likely.
7 to 10 times? That's huge.
It's huge. And they're also 4 to 12 times more likely to become drug abusers overall. This data clearly demonstrates just how foundational early adverse experiences can be in shaping a person's trajectory towards substance use disorders.
Can you break down what specific categories of ACEs we're talking about? It sounds like it's more than just a single event, but a constellation of experiences.
It's definitely multifaceted, covering a wide range of traumatic childhood circumstances. ACEs are generally grouped into 3 main categories, each with multiple subscales.
Okay, what are they?
First, there's childhood abuse, which encompasses emotional abuse, like constant verbal degradation, humiliation, physical abuse, any form of physical harm, and sexual abuse.
Okay, abuse.
Second, we have childhood neglect, which includes emotional neglect, lack of emotional support, affection, feeling loved, and physical neglect, lack of basic necessities like food, clothing, shelter, proper hygiene.
Neglect, got it.
And third, there's family dysfunction, which captures the impact of growing up in a household with significant challenges. Things like substance abuse by a parent or household member, mental illness in the home, witnessing domestic violence, having criminal household members, or significant parental marital discord like separation or divorce.
So a chaotic or unsafe home environment.
Exactly. Each of these can contribute to a child's cumulative ACE score, reflecting the combined weight and chronic stress of these adverse experiences.
So it's a comprehensive look at the entirety of a child's early environment. How do these traumas specifically affect adolescent development across the social, emotional, and cognitive domains? It must be profound.
The impact of trauma on adolescent development is indeed profound and pervasive. It touches everything.
Like socially.
In terms of social development, trauma can severely impair a child's fundamental ability to trust others, to form healthy attachments, and to build stable, reciprocal relationships. This often leads adolescents to isolate themselves, become hypervigilant in social situations, constantly scanning for threats.
Always on edge.
Exactly. Or, tragically, as a maladaptive coping mechanism, they might engage in unhealthy or high-risk peer groups that offer a false sense of belonging. Their social interactions become deeply distorted by their past experiences, making genuine connection incredibly difficult.
And emotionally, how does this deep impact manifest in their feelings and mood?
For emotional development, trauma significantly increases emotional dysregulation. This means adolescents struggle intensely to manage and express their feelings in healthy ways.
Big mood swings, intense reactions.
Yes, resulting in heightened anxiety, chronic depression, and severe mood instability. To cope with these overwhelming and often unbearable emotions, they may develop various maladaptive mechanisms, ranging from self-harm behaviors like cutting to extreme avoidance strategies.
Which could include substances.
Very directly include turning to substances as a way to numb or escape their internal pain.
And cognitively. Does it affect their thinking, their ability to learn and process information?
Yes, cognitive development is also deeply affected, and this is where the brain science we discussed earlier comes back into play. Chronic trauma can literally alter brain structures.
Like physically change the brain?
Yes, particularly areas like the hippocampus, which is vital for memory formation and recall, and the prefrontal cortex, which, as we mentioned, is essential for executive functions like planning, attention, and decision-making.
Wow.
This can lead to persistent difficulties in memory, challenges with maintaining attention and focus, impaired decision-making abilities, and consequently significant struggles in academic performance. Chronic stress from trauma can even delay or, in severe cases, regress cognitive progress, hindering a child's ability to learn, adapt, and function effectively in school and daily life. It's a fundamental disruption to the very process of maturation.
That's incredibly powerful, how trauma literally reshapes the brain and impacts every aspect of a child's development. It sounds like a one-way street, with trauma leading to vulnerability, but there's also this intriguing, almost unsettling, high-risk hypothesis about substance use and trauma that suggests a different direction. Can you explain that?
That's an excellent point, highlighting the complexity of these relationships. It's not always simple cause and effect. The high-risk hypothesis suggests a reciprocal rather than just a linear relationship.
Okay, a two-way street then.
Exactly. It posits that while trauma certainly predisposes individuals to substance use itself can also render adolescents more open and inclined towards risky and traumatic incidents. It creates a vicious cycle.
How so?
For example, one study found that in 9.5% of cases, the first sexual abuse actually happened after substance use had already begun.
Oh, wow. So the substance use came first in those cases.
Right. This indicates that engaging in substance use can impair judgment, lower inhibitions, and put young people in inherently vulnerable situations, significantly increasing their exposure to further trauma and exploitation.
So it's not always trauma leading to substance use. Sometimes substance use can lead to more trauma, creating this reinforcing feedback loop. Are there specific types of trauma that are more frequently linked to SUDs than others?
Yes, there are some patterns, though all trauma is damaging. Emotional neglect and physical abuse are frequently observed in individuals with substance use disorders, suggesting these specific forms of trauma might be particularly potent risk factors.
Neglect and physical abuse. Okay.
Interestingly, research also consistently shows that females often report significantly more traumatic experiences overall, including higher scores on emotional and sexual abuse compared to males.
Higher trauma rates for females generally.
Often, yes. There's also a notable correlation between a history of sexual abuse and the use of multiple substances, particularly with drugs like ecstasy. This underscores the need to consider specific trauma types and their prevalence when looking at addiction risk and when designing interventions. Can't treat everyone the same.
And I've heard about self-injurious behavior being connected here. How does that fit into this picture of trauma and vulnerability?
Self-injurious behavior, along with dissociation, which refers to a disconnection between a person's thoughts, memories, feelings, actions, or sense of identity.
Like feeling detached or unreal.
Exactly. That feeling of detachment. It can be measured by scales like the Adolescent Dissociative Experience Scale, or ADS. Both self-injury and dissociation are often intrinsically linked to childhood traumas, such as severe sexual and emotional abuse, as well as physical neglect.
Coping mechanisms.
Often, yes. The inability to cope with overwhelming emotional pain, often stemming directly from these traumas, can manifest as self-harm. Crucially, self-harm is also identified as an independent risk factor for addiction.
So self-harm predicts addiction risk on its own.
It does. This suggests that for many young people, turning to substances becomes yet another maladaptive coping mechanism to numb or escape from intense emotional distress and unresolved trauma, further increasing their vulnerability to developing a full-blown addiction. It's all interconnected.
It's clear that trauma creates an incredibly complex web of vulnerabilities. And this web often includes co-occurring mental illness, right? How high is the prevalence of comorbidity, where substance use disorders and other mental illnesses occur together?
The prevalence of comorbidity is strikingly high, so high that it's more the rule than the exception in many cases. It's incredibly common.
Like how common?
Approximately half of all individuals who experience a mental illness during their lives will also experience a substance use disorder, and vice versa.
50% overlap, wow.
It's a truly bidirectional relationship. For adolescents specifically, the numbers are even starker. Over 60% of adolescents in community-based substance use disorder treatment programs also meet diagnostic criteria for another mental illness.
Over 60% in treatment have both.
Yes. This indicates that we very rarely see substance use disorders in isolation in young people. They are almost always intertwined with other mental health challenges.
That's a huge overlap, making treatment incredibly complex. Are there specific pathways that explain this comorbidity? Is it simply one causing the other, or is it more nuanced?
It's definitely more nuanced, and understanding these pathways is essential for effective treatment. There are three main pathways that contribute to this pervasive comorbidity.
Okay, pathway one.
The first pathway involves common risk factors. Both substance use disorders and mental illnesses share significant overlapping genetic and epigenetic vulnerabilities, meaning changes in gene expression without altering the DNA sequence itself.
So shared genetic risks.
Right. They can also involve issues in similar brain areas, suggesting a shared biological predisposition. And critically, environmental influences like early exposure to chronic stress or trauma, the ACEs we just discussed, can significantly predispose individuals to both conditions simultaneously.
So the same things make you vulnerable to both.
Exactly. It's like having a foundation that's weak in multiple places, making it susceptible to various problems.
Okay, shared predisposition. What's the second pathway?
The second pathway is where mental illness may directly contribute to substance use and addiction. In these cases, individuals may turn to substances as a desperate form of self-medication.
Trying to treat themselves.
Yeah, trying to cope with or temporarily alleviate the debilitating symptoms of their underlying mental illness. For example, someone suffering from severe anxiety might use alcohol to calm their racing thoughts. Or an individual with schizophrenia might smoke heavily to manage symptoms like poor concentration or low mood, or even to mitigate the side effects of medications.
So the mental illness comes first, leads to substance use.
In this pathway, yes. The substance becomes a perceived, albeit ultimately damaging, solution to their internal distress.
And the third pathway, is it the reverse, where substance use leads to mental illness?
Exactly. The third pathway is where substance use and addiction can directly contribute to the development or exacerbation of mental illness. Substance use can profoundly alter brain structure and function in ways that are remarkably similar to what's observed in other primary mental disorders.
So the drugs change the brain in ways that look like mental illness.
Or trigger it, yes. If drug use precedes the first symptoms of a mental illness, it can essentially kindle or trigger an underlying genetic or biological predisposition to develop that mental illness.
Like flipping a switch that was already there.
That's a good way to put it. For instance, chronic cannabis use in vulnerable adolescents has been linked to an increased risk of psychosis. This highlights the truly complex, dynamic, and often bidirectional relationship between mental health and substance use.
So it's a dynamic two-way street where either can fuel the other. Let's dig into some specific comorbidities, starting with ADHD, which is so prevalent in young people today.
Right, ADHD. Untreated ADHD significantly increases the risk for substance use disorders, particularly when it's combined with conduct disorders, which often co-occur.
Why is that?
The core characteristics of ADHD, like impulsive behavior, difficulty with attention regulation, and restlessness, can directly drive individuals towards substances as a way to self-regulate, to calm their minds, or to seek stimulation.
Self-medicating the ADHD symptoms.
Often, yes. However, it's absolutely crucial to clarify a common misconception. Effective treatment of childhood ADHD with stimulant medications, when combined with proper education and behavioral interventions, does not necessarily increase the risk of substance use disorder.
Okay, that's important. Treatment doesn't cause addiction.
Not necessarily, no. In fact, for many, it mitigates that risk by helping them manage their symptoms, reducing the need to self-medicate. When ADHD is well managed, that specific risk factor is substantially reduced.
That's really important to clarify for many parents and young people. What about depression and anxiety, which seem to be such pervasive issues in young people generally?
Depression and anxiety are extremely common and strongly correlated with substance misuse. Individuals often use substances as a coping mechanism for the emotional pain and distress associated with these conditions.
Numbing the pain.
Pretty much. For example, one study found that clinical depression was present in a staggering 61.9% of hospitalized SUD patients, demonstrating the immense overlap.
Almost 2/3 had depression.
Yes. And, notably, emotional neglect during childhood was significantly higher in SUD cases that also presented with depression, underlining the compounding impact of early trauma.
Trauma, depression, and SUDs all linked.
Very tightly. Interestingly, in that same study, depressive patients showed a specific tendency to choose heroin as their substance of choice, suggesting there might be specific links between the type of mental health challenge and the type of drug chosen for self-medication.
Specific pairings. Interesting. And finally, a specific and often discussed link: schizophrenia and tobacco use. Why is that connection so strong, almost to the point of being stereotypical?
The link between schizophrenia and tobacco use is a compelling and often tragic example of neurobiological comorbidity, highlighting a dual vulnerability. Research indicates that brain abnormalities, particularly in the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, that's the DACC.
Another control region.
Yes, a region critically involved in decision-making, cognitive control, and impulse control can predispose individuals to schizophrenia. What's fascinating is that these same brain abnormalities can simultaneously increase the rewarding effects of nicotine.
So nicotine feels extra good to them.
Potentially, yes, making it much harder for individuals with schizophrenia to quit smoking. They may also use nicotine to self-medicate cognitive deficits or medication side effects. It's a profound dual vulnerability stemming from shared brain circuit impairments that make them susceptible to both conditions.
It's clear that addressing these co-occurring conditions in an integrated way is absolutely essential for effective treatment and long-term recovery. We've talked about this complex, layered picture of vulnerability, from brain structure and genetics to personality and trauma. Now let's shift to part 3 and discuss personalized paths to prevention and recovery, because understanding the problem is only the first step.
Absolutely. We need solutions.
For a long time, the public health message, particularly for young people, was simply just say no. How have prevention strategies evolved beyond that? Because that didn't really work, did it?
No. The Just Say No campaigns, while well-intentioned and driven by a desire to protect youth, ultimately had limited, if any, real-world impact. They often didn't resonate with the lived experiences, complex social pressures, or internal motivations of young people. They were just too simplistic for such a complex problem.
Right, ignore the why.
Exactly. The paradigm has shifted significantly now towards more nuanced, evidence-based, and community-sensitive approaches. These modern strategies move far beyond simple deterrence. Instead, they focus on empowering individuals to understand their personal relationship with substances.
Getting them to think about it differently.
Yes, helping them appreciate the nuanced, often long-term consequences of their behaviors, and critically, developing crucial adult tasks and skills like planning for the future, problem-solving, and emotional regulation. It's about building genuine internal resilience and coping skills rather than just issuing a blanket warning.
So less about a blanket message and more about empowering individuals with skills and understanding. One program that seems to embody this personalized approach is called Preventure. Can you tell us about it?
Preventure is an outstanding example of a personality-targeted intervention representing a significant leap forward in prevention. It's a brief, selective, group cognitive behavioral intervention delivered right where young people spend a huge portion of their time in schools.
Okay, school-based, brief, group CBT. What's unique?
What makes it truly unique and so effective is its precision. It doesn't try to target all youth universally. Instead, it carefully identifies and then targets specific, scientifically validated personality risk factors for early onset substance misuse.
Like the ones we talked about earlier.
Exactly. These include traits like high impulsivity, strong sensation seeking, elevated anxiety sensitivity, or pervasive hopelessness. The program is designed to deliver tailored skill-building workshops based on a student's predominant personality risk.
That's incredibly smart. It's like precision medicine for prevention, directing resources to those who might benefit most from a specific type of support. What are the key advantages of this kind of targeted approach?
The advantages are significant and multifaceted. First, it allows schools and communities, often operating with limited resources, to direct their efforts precisely to those most in need. This is far more efficient than broad, untargeted campaigns.
Better bang for your buck.
Basically, yes. Second, Preventure provides a truly integrated framework for addressing multiple prevention targets simultaneously. It tackles not only substance use directly, but also underlying mental health problems and even victimization, which, as we discussed, are often intertwined. This holistic approach makes it much more efficient and, critically, far more effective than traditional siloed methods. It acknowledges the complexity of the young person.
Okay, so it's efficient and holistic. And what does the rigorous research say about its efficacy? Does it actually work in reducing substance use outcomes?
The efficacy of Preventure is quite impressive, backed by strong empirical evidence. Studies have consistently indicated that this school-based program is successful in reducing a wide range of substance use outcomes by approximately 50% in high-risk adolescents.
50%, that's huge.
It really is. What's even more compelling is that these positive effects have been shown to last for an extended period, up to 3 years post-intervention. This isn't just a short-term fix, it has sustained meaningful impact.
50% reduction is incredibly substantial, a truly life-changing difference for many young people. Does it have any benefits beyond just reducing substance use? Does it help with mental health too?
Absolutely. The Preventure interventions were also associated with a significant 25% reduced likelihood of adolescents transitioning to significant mental health problems.
Like what kind of problems?
This includes conditions such as chronic anxiety, severe depression, suicidal ideation, and problematic conduct problems. This highlights its integrated benefit, demonstrating that by addressing the core personality vulnerabilities, the program is effectively tackling underlying issues that contribute to both substance use and a spectrum of mental health challenges. It's a testament to its comprehensive impact.
That's fantastic. Can you give us some more specific numbers on the reduction across different substances? It's powerful to hear the percentages.
Certainly. Over a 2-year follow-up period, the intervention dramatically increased the likelihood that high-risk adolescents would remain non-cannabis users by 30%.
Okay, 30% for cannabis.
For those at risk for cocaine use, it increased the likelihood of remaining non-users by a remarkable 80%.
80% for cocaine.
Wow. And for non-users of other illicit drugs, the likelihood of staying drug-free increased by 50% compared to high-risk youth and control groups who didn't receive the intervention. These are profound improvements across specific substance outcomes, underscoring the program's targeted effectiveness.
And since it's tailored to specific personality profiles, did certain personality types benefit from specific aspects of the program? Did it truly live up to its personalized promise?
Yes, that's a key and very exciting feature that makes Preventure so effective. It's not generic. Adolescents who scored high on sensation seeking, for instance.
It's the thrill seekers.
Right. They particularly benefited from the interventions in terms of delaying or significantly reducing binge drinking and delaying the onset of cannabis use. These are the kids who thrive on novelty and risk, and the program gave them healthier outlets and coping skills.
Makes sense.
For youth in the anxiety sensitivity group, those who are prone to anxiety and panic, the intervention specifically helped them show fewer coping motives for drinking alcohol.
So they learned other ways to cope with anxiety.
Exactly. Instead of using alcohol to calm their anxiety, they learned other strategies. This tailored approach allows the intervention to meet the unique needs of different at-risk profiles, consistently showing a moderate but meaningful effect across most substance use outcomes. It's not one size fits all, but rather finding the right key for each person's particular lock.
So the program is proving effective in the short to medium term. But how does it hold up over a longer period? What about 5-year outcomes, which are so crucial for understanding true impact?
The CoVenture trial, a large cluster randomized trial, provided compelling 5-year outcomes, which really demonstrate the sustained power of this intervention. It showed a significant 35% reduction in the annual increase in SUD rates in the intervention group compared to the control group.
A 35% reduction in the increase over time, so it slows down the progression.
Exactly. These positive differences were reliably observed by the 4th and 5th years of assessment, confirming a durable long-term benefit. To put it in more practical terms, the number needed to treat statistic for this trial was 52.
Number needed to treat. What does that mean again?
It means that for every 52 high-risk adolescents who participated in the PreVenture program, one case of substance use disorder was prevented by the final 5-year assessment.
Wow. That's an incredibly powerful statistic for prevention, knowing that for every 52 kids, a life-altering issue can be averted. What about future research for PreVenture? Are there specific populations they're hoping to test it on, perhaps those with even more complex needs?
Yes, the researchers are very keen to expand its reach and understanding. There are important areas for future research. They want to rigorously test PreVenture in populations with more severe histories of trauma, documented maltreatment, concurrent mental health problems that are already established, or those with special education needs.
So kids facing even bigger challenges.
Right. This will help us truly understand its effectiveness and adaptability across an even broader range of highly vulnerable youth, and hopefully refine it further for those with the most complex challenges.
So these personalized interventions are proving effective, showing us a clearer path forward. But how do we scale them? What are the broader systemic barriers that prevent comprehensive care for young people who are struggling with substance use and co-occurring mental health issues? Because a great program won't work if it can't reach the people who need it.
That is indeed a significant and pervasive challenge, and it's one of the biggest hurdles we face. Despite the alarmingly high rates of comorbidity we've discussed, the healthcare system is simply not built to handle it effectively.
How bad is it?
Only about 18% of substance use disorder treatment programs and a mere 9% of mental health organizations actually have the capacity to serve duly diagnosed patients.
18% and 9%, that's abysmal.
It is. Think about that. The vast majority are ill-equipped. This massive gap means that countless young people are falling through the cracks, not getting the integrated, holistic care they desperately need because the systems are fragmented, separate silos.
That's a truly stark statistic. What are the specific practical and philosophical barriers contributing to that fragmentation? Why is it so hard to integrate care?
There are several key barriers that perpetuate this problem. In the United States, for example, SUD treatment is often completely siloed from the general healthcare system. Primary care physicians are typically the first line for general mental disorders, while drug treatment is handled by a separate, often specialized SUD system.
Two different worlds.
Right. Crucially, neither typically has sufficient expertise to comprehensively address the full range of intertwined problems presented by duly diagnosed patients. It's like asking a dentist to perform heart surgery.
Okay, lack of cross-training.
Exactly. Additionally, a lingering and frankly outdated bias often exists in some SUD treatment centers against using any medications, even those that are scientifically proven and necessary for serious mental illnesses like severe depression, anxiety, or schizophrenia.
Like an abstinence-only approach, even for mental health meds.
Sometimes, yes, though thankfully this is slowly changing. Many SUD programs also simply lack clinicians who are licensed or trained to prescribe or monitor medications.
Can't write the prescriptions.
Right. Furthermore, a substantial and often overlooked number of individuals who would benefit from integrated treatment are caught within the criminal justice system.
Oh yeah, prisons and jails.
With an estimated 45% of those in state and local prisons and jails having co-occurring mental health and substance use problems. Yet, adequate integrated treatment services are often grossly insufficient or completely unavailable within these carceral settings, creating a revolving door.
So it's a fragmented system with deep philosophical and practical hurdles that trap people in a cycle. Given these systemic challenges, what behavioral therapies and integrated approaches are currently considered key for treating these complex, co-occurring disorders in young people? What tools do we have?
While the system has its flaws, we do have a growing number of evidence-based behavioral treatments that are crucial for effectively addressing these complex, co-occurring disorders. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is a cornerstone.
CBT, okay. Standard but effective.
Very effective. It's designed to help individuals identify and modify harmful thought patterns, beliefs, and maladaptive behaviors. It shows strong efficacy for both SUDs and common anxiety and mood disorders in youth, essentially teaching them new ways to think and react.
Changing thoughts changes behavior.
That's the core idea. Then there's dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, which is a powerful intervention specifically designed to reduce severe self-harm behaviors, including suicidal thoughts or urges, cutting, and problematic drug use.
DBT for self-harm and emotional regulation.
Exactly. It's particularly effective for individuals struggling with intense emotional dysregulation and is one of the few treatments proven effective for borderline personality disorder.
What about for more severe mental illnesses, like schizophrenia, where comprehensive support is vital?
For severe mental illnesses like schizophrenia, especially when complicated by co-occurring SUDs, assertive community treatment, ACT programs, offer a truly integrated behavioral treatment model.
ACT. What's that involve?
ACT is distinctive for its smaller caseload sizes, a multidisciplinary team approach, and its strong outreach emphasis, often meeting patients where they are in the community. It provides a highly individualized, wraparound approach to maintain consistent contact with patients and help them navigate their challenges.
More hands-on, community-based.
Right. Another powerful approach, often residential, is therapeutic communities, TCs. These are long-term residential treatment programs focusing on resocialization through a structured, supportive environment.
Like a structured living environment focused on change.
Yes, they're highly appropriate for populations with a high prevalence of co-occurring disorders, including vulnerable youth who need a complete change of environment and routine.
Are there any therapies that incorporate incentives to encourage positive behavior change? Like rewards?
Yes, absolutely. Contingency management, CM, often referred to as motivational incentives, MI, are powerful adjuncts to treatment.
How do they work?
These approaches systematically reward patients who practice healthy behaviors, like submitting negative urine drug tests or achieving smoking reduction goals. They've been shown to significantly improve treatment compliance and lead to substantial reductions in drug use, positive reinforcement.
Makes sense. And for trauma, like PTSD?
For anxiety disorders, or PTSD, exposure therapy is a highly effective, albeit challenging, approach. It involves repeated controlled exposure to feared situations, objects, or memories in a safe environment to help desensitize patients and reduce their anxious responses.
Facing the fear gradually?
In a safe way, yes.
And are there specific approaches designed for particular dual diagnoses, like bipolar disorder? You mentioned that's common too.
Indeed. Integrated group therapy, IGT, was developed specifically for patients with bipolar disorder and substance use disorder. It's designed to address both problems simultaneously, often as an adjunct to medication. It helps patients understand the intricate relationship between the two disorders, how one might trigger or exacerbate the other.
Learning how the two interact.
Exactly. Lastly, seeking safety, SS, is a very important present-focused therapy designed to treat trauma-related problems, including PTSD and substance use disorder concurrently.
Seeking safety. What's the focus there?
It teaches patients essential coping skills for both sets of symptoms, recognizing that healing trauma is key to sustainable recovery from addiction, but it focuses on building safety and skills now in the present.
That's a comprehensive toolkit of therapies, showing how diverse the approaches must be to meet individual needs. I also heard about mobile medical applications being approved for SUD treatment. Are those a recognized tool now? Like apps on your phone?
Yes, that's a very exciting development, leveraging technology to expand access to care. In 2017, the FDA approved the first mobile medical application specifically to help treat substance use disorders.
An FDA-approved app for addiction.
Yes. This app delivers elements of cognitive behavioral therapy directly to patients, teaching them essential skills that aid in treatment retention and increase engagement in outpatient therapy programs for alcohol, cocaine, marijuana, and stimulant use disorders.
So CBT in your pocket.
Essentially, yes. It's a significant step in extending the reach of evidence-based care beyond traditional clinical settings, putting support literally in the palm of a patient's hand.
That's a significant step, leveraging technology for treatment. Now, shifting back to prevention on a broader scale, how important is early intervention, particularly within pediatric primary care settings, given that doctors are often the first point of contact for young people?
Early intervention in pediatric primary care is incredibly important, arguably one of our most vital frontiers. There's increasing recognition of the urgent need for universal substance use screening in these routine settings.
Just ask every kid, basically.
That's the goal. The American Academy of Pediatrics, for example, recommended way back in 2011 that pediatric health professionals should integrate substance use education and screening into routine clinical care for adolescents. It's vital because any level of substance use in adolescence, even seemingly experimental use, is considered risky.
Why is any use risky?
It can profoundly disrupt developing brain architecture, lead to significant educational underachievement, and induce or exacerbate existing mental comorbidities. The adolescent brain is just too vulnerable. We need to catch it early.
So even what might seem like casual experimentation is a serious red flag because of its impact on the developing brain. What about more targeted prevention for those identified with specific risk factors, not just universal screening?
That's precisely where selective prevention programs come into play. These are specifically targeted at individuals who already exhibit defined risk factors for developing substance misuse and full-blown SUD.
Like kids with certain personalities or family history.
Exactly. This could be children with certain dispositional traits we discussed, or, crucially, those coming from families experiencing addiction. At a minimum, simply identifying that a young patient lives in a home where parents or other household members are misusing substances or have untreated SUD allows the provider to monitor that child's health needs through what we call a substance-informed lens.
A substance-informed lens, so just being aware.
Yes. Studies consistently show these children have greater overall healthcare needs, and being aware of the environment allows for vigilance.
So simply being aware of the home environment is a crucial first step, putting that child onto different radar. Can primary care providers do even more beyond just monitoring and awareness?
Absolutely. With even a moderate increase in time and a strategic investment, a primary care provider can do much more. They can confidently refer the child and, importantly, their family members to family-focused prevention programs, educational resources, and recovery support services.
Connecting the whole family to help.
Yes. Programs like the Family Checkup, which emphasize motivational interviewing techniques, have been shown to be remarkably effective for substance use prevention. The research is unequivocally clear on this point. Successfully getting a parent into care for their own substance use is arguably a powerful preventive intervention for the child, leading to improved health and well-being for the entire family unit. It's a ripple effect.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
Helping the parent helps the child immensely. What other systemic strategies are being advocated to better integrate mental health services directly into primary care, making it easier for providers to act?
An additional strategy that has consistently shown to improve care coordination and patient outcomes is to integrate mental health services directly into the existing primary healthcare model.
Like having a therapist right there in the doctor's office.
Exactly. This might involve having a social worker, a behavioral health specialist, or a mental health counselor embedded right there in the pediatric practice. This allows for more enhanced office-based selective prevention and early intervention programs, ensuring that co-occurring mental health conditions can be targeted more effectively and immediately.
Without the doctor needing to be the expert.
Right, without necessarily increasing the time burden on the primary care provider who might already be stretched thin. It brings the expertise directly to the patient's existing medical home.
And for medical professionals themselves, how can we overcome the deeply ingrained barriers they often face, like perceived lack of time or insufficient training in this area?
To fundamentally address these barriers, there's an immediate and pressing need for action in medical training and system optimization. Pediatric residency programs, for example, must aggressively include comprehensive skills training and real-world clinical experiences to build comfort and competence around screening, early intervention, and knowing when and how to consult with addiction medicine specialists.
Better training from the start.
Absolutely. Increasing competence in screening and referral can directly overcome the common perception that there's insufficient time to address substance use. Further, optimizing screening processes within the existing workflow of primary care settings is key.
Making it easier to do.
Yes, this specifically involves incorporating standardized, validated screening instruments directly into electronic health record (EHR) systems, which can be far more impactful than focusing solely on individual provider factors.
Build it into the computer system.
Right. In fact, readily available computer-facilitated screening and brief advice systems have already been shown to be effective in increasing substance use counseling rates and demonstrably reducing adolescent substance use. Technology can be a powerful ally here.
That sounds like a truly comprehensive approach, from specialized training to leveraging technology. Finally, what about the positive side? We've talked so much about vulnerabilities and risks, but what are the key protective factors that can help build resilience and offset the risk of substance use in young people? What builds them up?
It's absolutely crucial that we conclude by focusing on the strengths and on identifying and strengthening these vital protective factors across multiple domains of a young person's life. It's not all about risk.
Okay, so what protects them on an individual level?
On an individual level, high self-efficacy, that's the confidence a young person has in their ability to resist peer pressure or difficult situations, is paramount.
Believing you can handle it?
Yes. Strong emotion regulation skills, which reduce reliance on substances for mood control, are also vital. Optimism, a positive outlook, and quite simply, strong negative attitudes about substance abuse themselves act as powerful internal buffers against risk.
So it's about building internal strength, giving them tools to navigate internal and external pressures. What about within the family unit? What helps there?
Within the family, positive parenting practices characterized by warmth, consistent support, and clear, firm boundaries can powerfully buffer against risk factors.
Warmth and rules.
A good balance. Open, honest communication about substance use risks and fostering strong family cohesion, a feeling of belonging and togetherness are also powerful protective factors. Crucially, active parental time and consistent monitoring of a child's activities and friendships are significant, tangible protective factors that reduce the likelihood of substance use.
Just being involved and knowing what's going on.
Exactly. It's about presence and active engagement.
And the school environment. What makes a school a protective factor?
Feeling a strong connection with school, a sense of belonging and engagement, is a significant protective factor within the school domain, if you feel like you belong there. Also, the presence of positive adult role models, such as caring teachers, supportive mentors, or engaged coaches, can make an enormous difference in a young person's life, providing guidance and positive examples, someone to look up to.
And how about leisure time? Does how a young person spends their free time really make a difference in their vulnerability?
Absolutely. How a young person spends their free time is a critical, often underestimated protective factor. Structured leisure activities are consistently and strongly associated with protective factors.
Structured activities, like what?
Think about engagement in arts programs, organized sports teams, participation in religious organizations, volunteering in the community, or attending community centers with supervised activities. Things with a purpose and adult oversight. These activities offer invaluable opportunities for setting and achieving goals, building positive relationships with peers and adults, and exposure to positive adult role models. They act as a powerful buffer against high-risk situations and reliably lead to more pro-social behaviors, enhanced self-esteem, and even academic success.
Keeps them busy and connected in positive ways.
Exactly. This stands in stark contrast to unstructured, unsupervised leisure time, which can unfortunately leave adolescents far more vulnerable to risky situations and negative influences. Idle hands, as they say.
These protective factors really highlight that while the risks are complex and multifaceted, the solutions are also comprehensive and involve every layer of a young person's life. It makes me think of a story I once heard that perfectly illustrates this personalized approach to intervention, moving beyond the simple just say no. Mr. Harrison, the school counselor, didn't use charts or pamphlets, and he certainly didn't lecture. When he met with Chloe, a bright student whose file, if you looked at it, screamed high risk due to her sharp impulsivity and the chaotic, neglectful home life she endured, he just listened, really listened.
That's key.
He learned she loved to draw, but her hand shook too much lately, making it hard to steady the pencil. He didn't lecture her about the vodka she'd been stealing from her parents. He didn't even mention it immediately. Instead, he brought in 2 sketch pads and a set of charcoal pencils.
Okay.
Let's make a deal, he said, his voice calm and direct. For the next week, every time you feel that frantic, overwhelming urge, the one that makes your hands shake, you draw it. Draw the feeling. Big, small, ugly, beautiful, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be good. It just has to be there on the page.
Giving her an alternative outlet.
Exactly. He wasn't trying to fix her entire life in an hour. He was giving her a new tool, one that fit the unique shape of her personality and her specific challenge. He was giving her an alternative path for that intense internal drive.
Personalized.
Totally. A week later, Chloe returned, not with the shame of failure, but with a thick book full of furious, dark, incredible sketches. She hadn't had a drink.
Wow.
It wasn't a cure, of course, but it was a powerful start, a personalized key for a lock no one else had bothered to examine closely.
That story perfectly encapsulates the nuanced understanding we need to move forward. This deep dive has shown us that the traditional, stereotypical image of a young person at risk for addiction is far too narrow, and frankly, it's outdated.
Yeah, we need to throw out that old picture.
We really do.
Yeah.
It's not just about obvious struggles or external failures. It's about understanding the intricate dance between hidden neurobiological predispositions, those sometimes surprising brain findings, powerful personality traits like impulsivity and sensation-seeking, and the profound, often invisible impact of childhood trauma.
And it really highlights that effective prevention and recovery aren't about one-size-fits-all solutions or generic warnings. They demand personalized, integrated approaches that deeply consider the individual's unique brain, their specific life experiences, and, crucially, their inherent strengths and protective factors.
You have to look at the whole person, the whole context.
Right. It's about recognizing the hidden vulnerabilities, understanding the intricate web of contributing factors, and then leveraging every possible protective measure in families, schools, and communities to support them.
Ultimately, this means shifting our societal focus from simply reacting to substance use once it becomes a crisis to proactively identifying early markers of vulnerability and intervening with strategies that are as complex, empathetic, and individual as the young people they aim to help.
Building that fence at the top of the cliff, not just parking the ambulance at the bottom.
Exactly. It's about building a system of support that truly sees, understands, and responds to each child's unique journey.